It's hot. Honestly, I'm just hiding up here in my room where I have air conditioning because I am not going anywhere near that hot stove. We are not cooking this time of year. It's like the sweat is on. And so I put together a compilation of 10 of my favorite no cook recipes for you. We're making these all summer long if we can, and they're also budget friendly, obviously. Stay cool, my friends. For this one, we're gonna make a breakfast banana split. And this is actually a super healthy breakfast option, and it's not gonna heat up anything in your kitchen. You're simply going to slice a banana in half, pour your favorite yogurt over the top, and then whatever type of fruit you have on hand or whatever your favorite is. We're using some strawberries, blackberries, and blueberries. And then you can even top it with a little bit of chocolate chips and sprinkles just to make it fun. But it's still a very, very healthy breakfast, and it's definitely not gonna heat up anything in your kitchen. What do you think? Good. Pretty yummy, huh? This next one is another breakfast or lunch idea. We have yogurt with fruit and granola. Let's not forget about an old favorite. We like to use Greek yogurt, but you can use whatever your favorite kind is. I like to choose the fruit from like the packages that are just like not quite good enough for like a fruit salad or just eat on their own. I always find that there's a little bit at the bottom, and I kind of save those, and those are perfect to put on top of yogurt. So it's a great way to save food and not waste. And then I make a really delicious homemade granola. I'm going to put the recipe for that down below in the description box for you. It's super simple and easy, and it can save you a ton of money because old-fashioned oats are just super inexpensive as they are. You really don't need to buy the store-bought stuff. Next up, we're making chickpea salad sandwiches. This is super easy just to use that can of chickpeas in your cabinet. So I'm just opening up my chickpeas and mashing them with a fork and adding about 1/4 cup of mayo. I just want to kind of mush the chickpeas a little bit, but not too much. Then I'm adding the same ingredients, just about 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of parsley, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt this time, as well as a little bit of pepper. This recipe would also taste delicious if you had some lemon juice or a little bit of Dijon mustard. There are many different ways that you can make a chickpea salad. If you are vegan, you could use a vegan mayonnaise if you had that, and this is also a great alternative. Budget-friendly meals are often a lot about using the things that you already have on hand to enhance other ingredients that you've purchased. So just take a look in your fridge and see what you have. Here we've got some silly kids in the background as I make sandwiches. So you might have noticed I filmed this a while back in my old kitchen, and I was actually doing like a budget lunch challenge. So I had some egg salad too, which is, hey, also another great no cook dinner. I mean, you do have to cook the eggs, which is why I didn't exactly include it, but egg salad is such a nice, cool, budget friendly dinner or lunch this time of year as well. But the chickpea salad requires absolutely zero cooking. I was able to get this huge package of bread from Aldi, and I was just making up sandwiches for the week. So we did some chickpea salad and some egg salad. This is a great way to plan ahead, and you can have some really inexpensive stuff. I think these budget lunches, it was like $5, and I made like 35 lunches or something like that. It was crazy. And the kids were so little here, and I didn't even notice, like originally when I recorded this, I didn't even notice Julian like climbing up onto the back counter. He's always been such a climber, and grabbing a banana. I think he was like 2. So wild. And hey, if you cannot believe how big these kids are now, and like how crazy it was that I was doing this, I think that was like 2 or 3 years ago, make sure to give this video a like. I appreciate that you are still here, and if you're new here, I appreciate you so much as well. We are still having so much fun at budget cooking, so make sure to subscribe if you have not already. The next hot weather, cool dinner or lunch idea is gazpacho. This one I actually made when I was cooking on a Dollar Tree challenge, so I was able to get everything canned, which is super inexpensive, but you can use fresh if you have it. The recipe calls for a fresh red bell pepper, but I'm going to use canned. And then instead of 2 pounds of fresh tomatoes, I'm going to use 2 cans of diced tomatoes. And they actually happen to have organic today, which was actually a really good deal. In the recipe, you're looking for sherry or red wine vinegar, but I had apple cider vinegar. I figured that would work. Some olive oil, fresh garlic, salt and pepper, and some fresh basil, which we're going to use dried. In the bowl of a food processor, blender, or in my case, I'm using a NutriBullet, combine your drained red peppers and your 2 cans of diced tomatoes. Add about a teaspoon of your chopped garlic and 2 tablespoons of vinegar. Obviously, if you have any of these ingredients on hand, you do not need to get them at the Dollar Tree. Alternatively, you could also use garlic powder instead of minced garlic. And then to that, you want to add in 1/3 cup of your extra virgin olive oil blend, a little bit of salt and pepper, and then we're just going to blend this up until smooth. Taste your gazpacho and season it with more salt, pepper, or vinegar if needed, and then you want to cover it and refrigerate it until it's chilled. And I served mine with a little drizzle of that oil blend, some basil flakes, and croutons, and it was absolutely fabulous. You would never know that this was a Dollar Tree gazpacho, and it's so good this time of year. This was a no-cook meal, an absolute summer favorite, and relatively healthy. This just goes to show you that Dollar Tree can absolutely be gourmet. And don't forget, if you have any of these items already in your pantry or in your fridge, go ahead and make this recipe anyway. This is an amazing pantry meal that you can use your leftover croutons with, or you can make croutons if you have leftover bread. Do not hesitate to swap things in or out to make a delicious meal for yourself. Next up is a delicious Greek chickpea salad. And you want about a cup of grape or cherry tomatoes and just have those. And then you want to slice up about a 1/2 cup to a cup of cucumber, depending on how much you like. I had 1 mini cucumber, so that was perfect for me. But if you have more of like a larger greenhouse cucumber, make sure to peel it because that skin can be quite bitter, and then slice that up as well. You'll also want a 1/4 cup of fresh chopped dill, and I happen to have some in my garden, so that was nice and easy for me. But if you don't have any fresh on hand, go ahead and use dried dill. That's totally fine. You can use a couple teaspoons of that. For the dressing, you want 1/3 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And as I'm reading the recipe, I'm realizing it said 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, but I used 1/3 cup. It was still delicious, but it was a lot of dressing, so maybe the 2 tablespoons is where I went wrong. Then you want a teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. Mix it well. Go ahead and add in your dill. And now you can add your salad components. So put in your cucumbers, your tomatoes, and 1 15-ounce can of drained and rinsed garbanzos. Now, I happen to have an avocado on hand, and while the salad did not say to add one, I decided to, and I decided to do that kind of instead of Kalamata olives because I do not love them, but I do love avocados. So, use what you have on hand, use what you love, use what you like. Now, this salad does not include lettuce inherently, but if you have some lettuce on hand and you want to do that to fill it up, maybe you don't have some cucumber, the salad dressing is phenomenal, and you can add lettuce to it, and you could just have tomatoes or just avocados, whatever you have, this chickpeas and the dressing, and then all of the veggies that you love, go ahead and put those in and it will still be delicious. And then I also added, you can see, 1 chopped scallion, and you can add as much or as little feta cheese as you like. I also know some people don't like feta cheese and they may choose goat cheese instead. Either way, this salad is fabulous. And I forgot to mention, the original recipe actually has you adding red onion. So if you have sliced red onion, you could add that instead of scallions. Again, there's a lot of swaps you can do here, and it all kind of starts with 1 can of chickpeas or garbanzos or whatever you want to call them. But this is a fabulous lunch or side or even dinner because there's plenty of protein in those chickpeas. This next one is one of my favorites. It's a cottage cheese pull. It's a savory thing that you can have for breakfast or lunch. So I snagged this cottage cheese on clearance a few weeks ago, and it was good till June. So I bought all of them because we eat a lot of cottage cheese in here. So I'm gonna do about half the container, which is about a cup. So for a cottage cheese bowl, I like to cut up some scallions. That gives it really good flavor. And then do cucumber. If I had red, yellow, green peppers, I would chop those up and put those in too. I just don't have any today, but the cucumber is really good. And then I'm also gonna chop up some tomatoes. I also like to use like the little sprinkles tomatoes, like the teeny tiny ones or the grape tomatoes, just depending what's on sale. And last but not least, you'd say I snagged this on clearance too. This is a everything bagel seasoning with no salt because cottage cheese is pretty salty. And I find that if you add like the everything bagel with the salt, it's like way too much, but without it, it's delicious. So a sprinkle of this over that, I totally recommend it. This next recipe is for a Tuscan tuna salad, and it could not get any easier. This is great for a lunch or a dinner. You just want about 4 cups of mixed greens, and I'm making about half the recipe because I'm just gonna make this for myself for lunch. And yes, I do like a big salad, so if you were making it for yourself and you like a smaller one, I might even half that size that I'm gonna make. So I'm just using some leftover lettuce that I had in the fridge. So you may see it's not like the freshest lettuce in the world, but that's the thing. We have to cook with what we have. And I am going to add about 1/4 cup of sliced tomatoes and a little bit of sliced red onion. The original recipe says 1/2 cup. I am just not a huge red onion person. So the great thing about salads is it's make your own. You can use as much or as little as you like. The recipe calls for 1 15-ounce can of drained and rinsed cannellini beans. I had navy beans, and I'm thinking, are those the same? I'm not 100% sure. They're supposed to be white kidney beans, but navy beans were delicious in this. So whatever you have, I've also used like Great Northern beans, and those are good too. And then you want to add a can or 2 of tuna, and you can use packed in oil, undrained, or I actually just drained mine and I just had mine in water. So I think with the oil that would actually add to like kind of the dressing of the salad and add a lot of healthy fats. I just personally didn't have that on hand, so I thought it'd be fine. If I needed to add oil, then I would have. Go ahead and add a couple teaspoons of lemon juice. And this salad is ready to go, salt and pepper as needed. It is so delicious. This is such a fresh and light, healthy salad, and it's so inexpensive because beans are gonna be like 50 to 75 cents. You get a can of tuna, that's basically the basis of this. And like I said, this is a great thing to use that leftover lettuce for, because how many times do you have a can of tuna and a can of beans in the cabinet ready to go? For this recipe, I am going to make a 3-bean salad. Now this is a favorite from when I was little, and you know the recipe is good when you had to ask your mom for a photo of it. And I have this printout that I keep, which is an awesome picture from the recipe book. I think handwritten is also really nice, and that's how you know that this is like a time-tested recipe. I'm gonna start off by slicing 1 medium onion. I thought my onion was a little bit on the larger side, and I did decide to double the recipe, but I didn't necessarily wanna completely double the onion because it's just a lot of onion for me. So it kind of depends on your taste. If you're fully doubling it, go ahead and put 2 onions in if you love onion. Otherwise, just stick with a medium to large one, and I think you'll be all set. Now, with buying an onion, buying wax beans, green beans, and kidney beans, and doubling the recipe, this recipe comes to about $7.23. But if you're making a single version of the recipe, it's $3.61. And here's the real deal, guys. I thought that I was gonna need so much more than I did, and I actually ended up having to throw some away in the end. So I would really recommend just doing a single serving of this recipe for $3.61, and you're gonna be in so much better shape. You do not need that double recipe at all. Good news is you may already have some of these canned beans on hand anyway. So like I said, we're using 2 cans of kidney beans, 2 cans of wax beans, and 2 cans of cut green beans, and you want to drain out all of those. I think if you do not have a fresh onion, that you could totally swap out for onion powder in this situation. And I'm cutting up some fresh parsley because I did have it on hand, but I didn't include that part in the price. You can go ahead and use dried parsley if you have it, or I believe my mom said she always just omitted it because she's just not a huge parsley fan. Now I'm also assuming you have some sugar, vinegar, and oil on hand. I'm gonna use 1/2 cup of sugar to double this recipe, along with 1 cup of white wine vinegar and 1 cup of salad oil. So you really wanna go with an oil that doesn't have a strong flavor. For spices, I'm adding a teaspoon of basil, and the recipe does call for a teaspoon of dried tarragon, but I didn't have any, so I didn't add it, and it still tasted great. Mix well, add in all of your beans, and then if you can, let this sit overnight. So I started this the night before our big barbecue, and it really lets those flavors marinate. If you don't have the full overnight period, I think 10 to 12 hours would be ideal if you can try and do it early in the morning. The less time, the less the marinade's gonna sit and the less flavor there will be. So I'm just recommending more time, so just think ahead on this one. Now, this recipe is not only a personal favorite, but it is now a favorite of all my friends, especially my girlfriends. They were totally swooning over this. They thought it was the best thing that they've ever had. They loved that sweet and tangy flavor, and they all wanted the recipe. So this is going to be a great budget meal to really wow your friends with. And like I said, even though I made double the recipe, I actually ended up having to throw some away, even though people thought it was the best ever. So I would just do half that recipe. So for $3.61, you are gonna get a ton of bang for your buck on this one. So for dinner tonight, we're making a chicken Caesar salad. This one is super easy. We're using rotisserie chicken. I'm gonna use about half of it for this, and then I'll use the other half for a different meal. So the rotisserie chicken that I buy is $4.29. I know that like Costco has like the $5 rotisserie chickens. It's upside down, $4.29. So that's about $2.18. Croutons could be anywhere ranging from like $1 to $1.50. So let's say on the low end, because we're gonna try and get this in for under $5, that we're gonna use the dollar croutons. So we're looking at $3.18. At my local store, a head of romaine lettuce is $1.50 plus $3.18 is looking at $4.68. And so we are a little potentially short on this, right? We're gonna need our Caesar dressing and our Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna kind of look at these as pantry items, hope that you have them on hand. I know at my local store, the Market Basket brand is $1.99 for Caesar dressing. I think at Dollar Tree, you could probably get it for $1.25. You know, it's delicious to have Parmesan cheese if you have it and just sprinkle some over. I wouldn't go out and buy it specifically for this. You could always just use any other dressing you have on hand because you don't necessarily have to have it be a Caesar salad, right? You can do just like a regular salad, maybe a cucumber, 50 cents. My cucumbers are usually about 50 cents. You could add a cucumber in there, maybe a little tomato. That's gonna be, again, like another 50 cents. And you can make like a garden salad with chicken. So the options feel a little endless with this. You know, you can even drizzle a little barbecue sauce on there, a little buffalo sauce, and make like a barbecue chicken salad or a buffalo chicken salad. It's just a pantry friendly option and it's super fast. Next up, we have a Waldorf salad, which is actually originally a 1920s recipe, but it is so good. And we're going to switch a few things in and out, and it's going to be a little different than the original, and I'm going to work with what I have. So that's how we do things around here. You're going to want 1 cup of red grapes, and we're going to cut those in half. To that, you want to add 2 cups of shredded chicken. Now, I'm using a rotisserie chicken. You can cook up some chicken in your Instant Pot. I'll make sure to put a recipe for that down below. Just super simple. You can do it in the crock pot, or you could use canned chicken. So if canned chicken is what you have, and that's the most affordable thing these days, go ahead and use a couple of cans of chicken, and that will treat you very well when it comes to a chicken salad. And you also want 1 rib of celery. Now, I do have a fresh celery, but hey, if you buy like a big pack of celery and you think, well, I don't need just one rib for this salad, you can actually slice that celery up, put it in the freezer, and reuse it later. It defrosts really well. I also cut up 1 scallion. Alternatively, you can use diced yellow or red onion or a teaspoon of onion powder. And then add in 1/3 a cup of Parmesan cheese. And the recipe calls for buttermilk, but I'm actually going to do a couple squeezes of lemon instead of doing the buttermilk. For spices, you want traditional 1920 spices such as 1 teaspoon of dried parsley flakes, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of dill weed, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then you want to mix it all together with about 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. This is give or take. I feel like mayonnaise in a salad like this is always how you like it. I'm a mayonnaise person, so I always put a little bit extra, but you can go a little bit lighter too. And because we didn't put that 1/3 cup of buttermilk in, it may be a little bit drier. That's kind of how I like mine, so I just kind of compensated by adding the lemon and the extra mayo. But you can instead alternatively do 1/3 cup of buttermilk or the squeeze of lemon juice and then 1/3 cup of milk, because that's actually a good substitute for buttermilk, because the buttermilk is actually just kind of like a more acidic milk. So if you do like a teaspoon of lemon juice and some milk, you're going to basically make the same flavor as buttermilk. Now, I had never added Parmesan cheese to my chicken salad before, and I am a true believer now. I will add Parmesan cheese every time. It's absolutely delicious. It gives it a fantastic flavor. The original recipe calls for croissants for this, but there were no croissants at my store, and I had these delicious whole wheat rolls, and I figured, you know what? That's what we have. That's what we're going to eat them on, and it's still going to be good, right? But this is a great, great chicken salad recipe. It is so delicious. It was so good that we actually ended up reusing it and making a whole nother batch of it for when I went camping for lunches that day. And this particular day at home, I just served it on a whole wheat bun with some chips, and it was fantastic. Like, it's my new go-to recipe. That Parmesan cheese is everything. I mean, grapes in it, get that crunch from the celery. It's absolutely fabulous. Make sure to click on this next video for some more fabulous summertime recipes, and make sure the next time you're on YouTube, you're watching Meals with Maria.